Alright, how's it going everybody? Today, gonna be doing a video on builds that I'll try so you don't have to. And the majority of these builds are gonna focus on Singular Focus, which is the rune that lets you pick up as many of the same ability as possible. And for me, I think that's probably the most enjoyable rune. You just get to do a lot of really stupid things. So this one, I'm gonna be going 6 Cobra Totem. I was very interested to see on how this was really gonna be going. And for the most part, it's been really fun. I'm just doing 18 curse, so I have every single curse that allows more enemies. So basically the elite ones and the reckless goblins and clone army. So gonna be some extra elites just so we get some extra experience and just so the game's not super dull. Didn't do anything in regards to the lords because I'm going to be playing Overlord, so as I move on I'll get more and more bosses, so it wasn't something that was too important. But started recording when I got 6 Cobra Totems, so from here on out it's just going to be a blast. So far I gotta say I had to lower my graphics to very low with this build. It was chunking my GPU and my RAM. It was kind of crazy, so I sadly had to play with lower graphics. That's why it looks a little funky, and I also have special effects on really low. But in general, this was a really fun enjoyable class to play. I went on Beastmaster, so I was able to start with the Cobra Totem first, and it just made it easier for me to get the Cobra Totems. Also, I didn't have to rely on any runes to say add nature skills or anything like that. You know, the Beastmaster has Cobra Totems, so simple enough. And then for the most part, just really focusing on getting a ton of HP and a ton of AOE. I went crit also just kind of for fun because there's no reason not to go crit, especially when you're playing this. And I think if I remember correctly, I get to like Overlord 4. So you're going to get a lot of levels. I mean, going to be in the upwards of like 150. So you can get 100% crit pretty simply by only investing a couple skills. So it's totally worth it just for the extra damage. And mostly just kind of doing a dot build. It's obviously poison focused, but no negative to adding a bunch of other ones, especially when there's all of the synergies where it's like, you know, apply a stack of poison, you have 50% to apply bleed and so on and so forth. Those are actually my favorite passives. They're really nice. But you can see, kind of hard to see the ground, I won't lie. But the bossing damage was pretty alright for this. It gets better later on, actually, as the HPs go up. You're just going to get increased stacks. You can see it's like already 300 stacks of poison. And I think I was hitting like upwards of 8,000. So it was a lot of fun. Probably just skip around here after killing this first boss, so show you guys the boss damage, because the clear is pretty nice. You don't really have to think about it, and as you up your AoE with this build, you're actually just pretty much hitting the whole screen. It kind of gets ridiculous, I have to say, and it's just really obnoxious. You can get increased quantity, so that's always nice, but just know that those only apply to one of your totems and not all of them. You have to get the passives that are like all, you know, summons get increased quantity, which I don't think that exists. That would be kind of insane. Oh yeah, this is where I was struggling with my graphics because I had it on medium already, and I was like, oh my gosh, and it just started like tanking right here. But I'm gonna go ahead, skip around to some of the bosses, and then we will talk about it there. So 2 bosses spawn on this first one. And as you could see, they got around 1,000 to 2,000 stacks of poison in that really quick amount of time. So that was nice. And we're slowly but surely getting the AoEs a little bit larger. Eventually, it'll get pretty ginormous, I have to say. So it was a very fun build. When you're playing Overlord, the bosses have increased HP. They take reduced damage from dot. And you also get decreased healing yourself. So it's important to start dodging a lot more, I have to say. Let's move on to, let's go to the last bosses here. Alright, here's the 7th and the 8th boss. They got about 4 million HP. We'll see how many stacks of everything we get onto them. As you can see, the one that's getting hit mostly has like 3,000 stacks of slow almost, 1,000 stacks of poison. And it's kind of ridiculous. That's what I enjoy about like playing Overlord so much, is that you're really able to get your your dot damages up a lot. And once you get past the 100% chance of actually hitting a dot whenever you hit an enemy, all getting additional dots does is add one more stack of whatever item that is. So it's like if you have 100% poison rate, if you get another level of venomous, it's just going to add one more stack of poison every time you hit an enemy, like guaranteed. I don't think it does anything about percentages anymore. I purely think that it just adds one more additional stack. That's just because when I was playing, I was really focused on how many of each passive I was picking up, basically. And I would notice that instead of getting like, 8 a hit or 9 a hit, and this wasn't this run because that'd be way too hard to track on this run. This is something where I was like doing I think swing, and so it was much easier to track when I was hitting an enemy and how many times I was hitting that enemy. And it just looked like it applied one more stack. So say if you were applying 9 per hit, if you got another level, you'd be applying 10. And so while that doesn't seem like anything crazy, it does stack up very quickly, especially when, look, I'm probably hitting things like 40 times a second at this point. So that's a lot of stacks. Here's the last boss. They have about 6 million HP. And this is going to be just from Overlord 1. Kind of just turns in a dash simulator, honestly. And it's always nice to get an additional dash. I was not that fortunate in this one, I have to say. So you just gotta focus on picking up agility, because if you don't dash, you're kind of screwed. So you really need that extra movement speed so you can just walk in this circle formation. I like doing circles, and then occasionally I'll do like a reverse circle, especially when the poison guy's out, poison and fire, because they will just fill your path with large amounts of dot. And by doing the reverse circle, you kind of avoid it a little bit. So those weren't too bad. We'll move on to the next map, see the bosses. I like Overlord because as the farther you go on, the less mobs it takes for you to spawn the bosses, and that turns into a really good time, I have to say, because eventually you're just spawning the bosses almost indefinitely. You don't really get to think about it, they're just there. And that, I think, is the most enjoyable part, because you just always have to worry about these guys now. So let's move on to the last bosses for this map. See how much HP. They're spawning with 12 million HP, which is still not a lot yet. But as you can see, they've been alive for like 5 seconds, and this guy has 2,000, the prophetess. She has 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 4,000 stacks of poison. At that point, you're doing like 500,000 damage a tick. It's kind of ridiculous. 6,000, almost 7,000 stacks. Turn my graphics down because I'm struggling. And yeah, she's just dying so quickly. The nice thing about Get the AOE up is, you don't really have to worry about it, because these guys have pretty decent range, I have to say. Like, the range is kind of insane. And so by doing that, it really, really helps you just hit the whole map. AOE does some really funny things with some of these abilities, I have to say. But yeah, they died pretty quick. So moving on to Overlord 3, which is a little bit more enjoyable. I can't remember if I died on this one or not, honestly. I think I did. So they're spawning first bosses with 20 million HP. And at this point, they move so much faster than they used to that it is really easy to just get trapped here. The other negative is like normal mobs are not dying as fast. The good thing about totems in comparison to normal summons is that they don't have HP bars, so they're not getting attacked by anything. And that makes your life a lot easier. But yeah, oh wow, we're about 10,000 stacks on some of these guys. But yeah, since they don't have HP bars, you're able to just drop them kind of on top of enemies. So this really just more relies on your ability to dodge, basically, because you're going to have to be dodging in and out of the bosses. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get close enough to hit them with these AoEs. But in general, the damage is really good, I have to say. The poison stacks are a little bit insane. Here's the last 4 bosses. They got about 30 million HP. And the bummer is that you don't really get to level up as fast in these later ones, because you're not honestly on the map long enough to really take full advantage of all of the levels. The bosses are spawning at like every 60 mobs at this point, and it is hard. But in general, you're applying like 5 to 10,000 stacks, so things die pretty fast. They're taking like ticks of 1,000,000 damage. This is why I think dot is not weak. I really love dot. Dot builds are fun. And here is Overlord 4. Pretty sure I die on this one. This ice map isn't the best in the world. I also probably should have just kited a lot more. I didn't play this so smart. Bosses spawn 5 at a time now at this point, and they have 40 million HP as the first spawn. I was pretty greedy here, kind of dodging in and out of everything. As you can see, I have 600 HP, but pretty much anything almost 2-shots you at this point. The bosses hit for so much, even the dots, as you saw, I stepped on that piece of poison, or sorry, yeah, the ice, and I took 25 damage. It was a lot, and then that boss just hit me for 295, so it doesn't really matter how much behemoth you go, you're only really going to take 2 hits. So if you don't want to go any HP, I understand. I just pick it up because I do get hit a lot, so it's nice to have at least like that one cushion, basically. And at this point, you have enough HP where if you were to go and res at 50% because of the death saves, you won't get one shot immediately right after. So as you can see, bosses are spawning about every 60 mobs at this point. So it is very quick. You don't really have a lot of time to level up. Those were the first elites that spawned on this map. And now the bosses are spawning with 60 million HP. And I mean, it goes down real fast, but you really don't have any room for error at this point. If you get hit by one thing, you're kind of screwed. As you see, I just lost both my death protections pretty much immediately, sadly. So there's, yeah, not a lot you could do, especially because sometimes you just get CC'd, and once you get CC'd once, you're kind of dead. So I personally don't think that the knockback rune that saves you from knockback and reduces your damage really does that much, but that's just me. But as you can see, we got like 12,000, 30,000 stacks, and just look at their HPs go down even though I'm dead. I mean, they have upwards of 20,000 stacks. So look, bosses are still dying. Still dying. I almost wiped that whole group of bosses from about 30 million HP after I died. So I think dot damage is really strong. I probably shouldn't have dodged around in circles there, but to each their own. Hope you guys enjoyed it.